Hey guys, it's the Dark Master here. You saw the thumbnail and the title of this video. Welcome to the 1000 subscriber special. We got a healthy selection of very interesting questions that I'm sure will be fun to answer. But before I do, I just want to say to all you guys, thank you. I never thought I'd get 10 subscribers, let alone 1000. You really went past my expectations, and I'm grateful to all of you for thinking that I was worth subscribing to. We've been through ups, downs, and all around. So, without further ado, let us get into the questions. Now, I'm not necessarily going to answer all of these in order, but for this case, I will because it was the very first question I got. It comes from Don Powers, aka the Crusader. What if Ninjago's Ghost Ninja Yokai, the Ghost Goon, somehow survived and became a loyal member of DC's Doom Patrol and DC's Freedom Fighters? Ooh, right off the bat, we got a recurring joke question. I don't really know if Ghost Ninja Yokai, given that he's kind of a evil person, a simple mook, would be joining DC's Doom Patrol or DC's Freedom Fighters squad willingly. Also, wouldn't he have to join one or the other? I don't think they let someone be part of another group, but then again, I'm not a big DC fan, so... Anyway, I guess if he became a loyal member, he could be useful. I mean, he can phase through walls, and I'm sure that's potentially useful for the Doom Patrol and such. I don't know, though. It's just a really weird crossover that we wouldn't expect to actually happen. The next question comes from the Autistic Gamer 2390. I have a question for you. Do you think Tiff and Tuff should be in the Kirby games, and is it just me, your avatar hands backwards? As for your first question, absolutely yes. I do think Tiff and Tuff should be in the Kirby games. I don't necessarily think they should be playable necessarily, as unlike the likes of Susie or Adeline or the Mage Sisters, there really isn't particular abilities that I think they would have. But I definitely think they should at least appear as NPCs. I mean, they put in far more obscure characters like Chef Shiitake or Escargoon, when really I think these two should make cameos as well. I don't know, I just feel like Nintendo is really afraid of acknowledging any adaptations made back in the early 2000s and prior, like, the Super Mario Super Show. But unlike that show, I think Kirby Right Back at Ya deserves more attention because it's actually a fairly good TV show. As for your second question, yeah, my hands are not exactly drawn 100% the best in terms of my avatar. You see, back in the day when I collaborated a lot more with my brother outside of thumbnails that he does nowadays, I basically wanted to get rid of my really old, really bad, drawn on physical paper avatar. And my brother, who is an art major, offered to do it. And, I, feeling, a close kinship to him, was like, okay, sure, I'll pay you $20. Can you make my avatar for me since you're a lot better. The thing is, while he is an art major, he is much more talented in terms of traditional art. Drawing on a piece of paper or painting, sculpture, that sort of thing. That's more of his talent. Granted, he's gotten a lot better in terms of digital art over the many years since this original avatar was made. Keep in mind, this is an old avatar. Yeah, it was revealed back in April 18th of 2020 and made it a few months before that. So, yeah, it's a it's a very old avatar, and so people like to make fun of it, like the Pedantic Pedestrian podcast, because it's the only thing they can criticize me for. Uh, but yeah, it's an old image, so and the reason I keep it, even though I really do want to get a new one very soon, is because I like to keep my Kirby Right Back at You retrospectives consistent, as it's one long series. And if you notice in the review of the pilot of the anime, aka the pilot of my review series, where I reviewed the pilot of the anime, I transitioned from my old shitty avatar to a newer one. And, well, I don't really think that would work if I was to change it again. And I plan on revealing my new avatar when I review the last part of this retrospective, which will be on a very interesting thing, but I don't want to spoil that now. So yeah, it's an old avatar, not the best, and I definitely hope to get a new one relatively soon, but what can I say? I will say, if anyone's an artist and would be interested in getting a little money, I would be willing to commission them, though I will say I won't be commissioning anyone until we get nearer to the end of our current, video series, that being the Kirby Right Back at You retrospective. So, yeah, that's really all there is to that. The next question comes from Michael B. What if DC's Defenstrator, Ninjago's Ghost Ninja Yokai, and Aquaman's Dawn Powers, aka Crusader, became an anti-hero team? I don't know. Looking at the three people you mentioned in this comment, I don't really think they would get along well enough to form an anti-hero team. So I don't really think that would work. Bill from Idaho at 1916 asks, will you continue to make paleontology videos like the icebergs? So, Bill, as for whether I'll continue making them, yes. In fact, once I finish my 2 Kirby series, which are both almost done, I mean, I'm already in the 80s in terms of the Kirby Right Back at You anime, and I am currently writing Kirby Star Allies, which was the last major Kirby 2D game of the modern era. I plan on primarily focusing on paleontology and nature videos a lot more. Though I do have a video series on the Drunken Peasants as well, but I'll be able to do that alongside making more paleontology videos. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, I can assure you there will be many more. One that I feel comfortable talking about now because it's pretty set in stone is that I plan on making a video on horseshoe crabs and the controversy regarding their status of being living fossils. But yeah, it'll be a nice excuse to talk about them and their diversity throughout time that I couldn't really talk about in my extinct invertebrate iceberg because, well, there were so many other groups that needed to be talked about in addition to them. And yeah, so that'll be nice. So if you're into that stuff, I will probably keep doing paleontology and nature videos into the foreseeable future. In fact, I'll probably outlive my Kirby series, though I will say I do have a few Lego sets that I want to review. So for the first month, probably either January or into February, I probably will be reviewing those in addition to my Kirby series and then returning to nature. But I only have a handful of Lego sets, so it won't be a long pause, just a bit of a break from it. So, yeah. Next question comes from Red Lantern Scalox. What if Ninjago's Ghost Ninja Yokai became a loyal member of MCU's Thunderbolt? Basically, the random ghost goon who happened to name Yokai who works for Moro. To be clear, you didn't have to tell me who that is. I know who he is. People ask about him pretty much every time I do one of these Q&As. But, I guess he could theoretically join it, maybe. I don't know. I don't really think he would contribute much. I mean, he can go through walls, he has ninja training, but I guess he's just okay. Maybe it could work. BMW895, in the longest comment I've recorded for so far, says the following. Congrats on this large milestone. Here's to another 1,000. Here's a few questions. 1. Thoughts on Nanotyrannus being found to be valid? Thoughts on the upcoming Kirby Air Riders? 3. Thoughts on Charlie Kirk's death? 4. What happened to your John Morgan documentary, and did you see Strabisky recently spurging about you? Ooh, that's a lot to answer. Well, let's start with number 1. So, as for my thoughts on Nanotyrannus being found to be valid, well, I'll be honest, I've always been more of an extinct invertebrate, amphibian, reptile, fish guy than dinosaurs. I I think they and Ice Age mammals are kind of overrepresented, but for understandable reasons, as they are a very diverse group, but still. But I was always kind of on the fence towards Nanotyrannus being valid, more towards it being valid, and that's because the fossil record fundamentally will never show the full diversity of any group in existence. Like, we will never know how many species of tyrannosaurs ever existed due to the fact that a lot of species are diagnosable by traits that just don't preserve in the fossil record, such as genetics, or in some cases, there's also the fact that we rarely, if ever, have a complete fossil of something. Even if we do necessarily have a complete fossil, it could be, an immature specimen that doesn't tell us enough about it. So really, when it comes to, diversity in fossil groups that are now extinct, you will never really know the full diversity in tyrannosaurs, let alone trilobites and such. And, looking at the paper, I think there really is no more argument that it could still be Tyrannosaurus rex. The arms are proportionally, and both literally, larger than those of Tyrannosaurus. Like, it's literally bigger than T-Rex, and there is not a single amnio, which is basically every tetrapod that isn't a amphibian, not a single one of those ever has an arm shrink in development. So yeah, I think it's pretty solid to be a distinct genus with now two species. But yeah, that's kind of cool. It fills a gap in the ecosystem that we thought was held in place by Tyrannosaurus juveniles. There's also, unfortunately, a high level of toxicity with regards to this specific genus. For example, there was a YouTuber named Paleo Analysis who talked about in his video on the subject that for years he was afraid of talking about this controversy publicly because if he did, he basically would have completely lost all of his reputation if he talked about it with any level of nuance. Not even like necessarily support it, but just be open-minded to the possibility that it might be a separate genus. And that's frankly just unacceptable. Here's a quick clip of that.
And had I made something about that, talking about it 5 years ago, my credibility as a science communicator would have been called into question. And that's not good science. Because there was an argument to be had here. But now, it's official. Nanotyrannus is real.
But yeah, it really says something about how I've noticed there's this increasing toxicity in the paleo community. I talked about it briefly in some of my past nature documentaries, like on Burmese amber, but there really is just a toxicity that's increasing in this community. I don't know why. I think it's because it's mostly a progressive echo chamber, and echo chambers always become increasingly toxic the more insular they become. I don't know. It's just weird. As for my thoughts on the upcoming Kirby Air Riders game, I'm looking forward to it. I liked the original Kirby Air Ride. Sure, the controls are awkward, and I think they should have gone with something more in line with Mario Kart, but it had its charm, and I can only hope that this new one will improve upon it. I mean, we already see that it has more playable characters, including Susie, which I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, hopefully it grows upon the foundation set in that game and doesn't stumble anything or become worse in any reasonable way. Alright, so I'm going to have to provide a little context before I give my opinion. In case you don't know, Charlie James Kirk, more well known as Charlie Kirk, was an American right-wing political activist slash media personality. He basically co-founded the Turning Point USA and was sort of kind of like Steven Crowder, where he would go onto college campuses and ask people questions. It's personally not my cup of tea. I don't really like that sort of videos all that much. Though I will say, I like how people bitch that he did that, but it was entirely voluntary. So like when people on Twitter are like, oh, Charlie Kirk, he made people look like stupid because of editing and blah, blah. They chose to fucking participate in it. These are fucking adults, dude. These are college-educated adults who chose to participate in something. If they're gonna look like an idiot, that's their fucking fault. Like, it's stupid. Like, you choose to participate in this. It was entirely voluntary. So on September 10th, 2025, he was attending a rally at the College of Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. He got shot by a Mauser type of bolt action hunting rifle, which, if you know anything about that gun, that was a very painful death. Though he clearly died almost instantly. From what I can tell, he might have persisted a little bit, but I don't really want to talk about that much. After this shooting, there were several false leads, including George Zinn, who's like this mentally ill guy who, for some reason, gets involved in a lot of unusual things. When he was arrested, though, they found CP on his phone. What the fuck? It's so weirdo. However, the real culprits turned out to be Tyler James Robinson, who there's been a lot of misinformation about this guy. I've seen tons of people try to claim this guy was some right winger, and all the arguments about that are kind of stupid. Let's break down the three main arguments that people like to say that he was right wing. One, they say his parents were Mormon, but it's like, first off, everyone's parents are Mormon in Utah. It's like the capital of Mormonism. But secondly, someone's parents' politics do not define who they are. I mean, isn't like Destiny's parents voted for Trump? Like, I'm pretty sure Shabisky has said that his parents are more conservative than he is. Like, someone's parents being conservative is not proof that they themselves are conservative. And the family, multiple family members, have pointed out that he became a radicalized leftwards after going to college. Wow, while someone goes to college and becomes a left-wing radical? Wow, what a conspiracy theory. It totally doesn't happen, guys. Another argument I've seen made is that he wore a American flag t-shirt at some point, and that's proof he's right-wing. But it's like, right-wingers are not the only ones who wear the American fucking flag, right? That's a really weird argument. The third argument I've heard is that he apparently dressed up like Donald Trump in a Halloween costume, but like, if you actually look at the costume, it's meant to be like a demeaning costume. So I don't really think that indicates any level of support of the man. Very unusual. Just, it's obvious. It's so fucking obvious that this guy was not a right winger, and anyone saying otherwise is stupid. I mean, first off, he had like a trans roommate. I know people are going to be like, "Oh, that doesn't prove anything. You can have a trans partner and that you be right wing." But it's like, generally speaking, people who have trans significant others tend to be more left wing. I mean, that's just an objective fact that people who tend to be into that tend to be more left wing. Not always, but like in the vast majority of cases, yeah, it's left wingers who are into that. There's also all the bullet casings that have left wing and Antifa messages on them. Like, for example, there's "Hey fascist, catch," which, I mean, for the record, if you were right wing, why the fuck would you call someone a fascist in a derogatory manner and then kill them for being fascist? That doesn't make any sense. The other one is Bella Ciao, which is an anti-fascist song. Some people have tried to downplay that by saying that it was also in like Helldivers 2, but for one, that fucking song is only available via a mod that sub 100 people had even downloaded, and was only, from what I can tell, released like about a week before the shooting happened. So it's very unlikely he even knew about that mod. I'm sorry, Bella Ciao is a anti-fascist song. I've seen some people try and claim it's a Groiper song, which I don't know where that comes from. That seems to be nothing more than some delusion a BreadTuber talked about. And for the record, if you don't know, Groiper is like a term for people who are fans of Nick Fuentes. The third bullet casing of note was "Notice his bulges. Ooh, what's this?" Which is apparently a reference to trans furry online roleplay or whatever. But remember, guys, this guy was totally right wing, according to John Morgan. Clearly, obviously. And I think these fuckers call conservatives weirdos when this is the fucking shit they're into. It's just cope. Like, it's obvious that the guy who shot Charlie Kirk and has multiple Discord messages where he says that he fucking views the guy as a fascist, shot him, is left wing. Like, it's obvious. And, let's say hypothetically that this guy, through some miracle of God, isn't a left winger, which it's obvious he is, right? Like, the fact that the left cheered it on, or at least certain segments of the left is more than enough to, talk about. Before I talk about specific individuals, though, I feel that there are several general arguments that are worth addressing in terms of this incident that I see multiple people make. First off is that somehow, it was ironic or deserved because Charlie Kirk argued for, the Second Amendment, and because he was against gun control, him getting shot was deserved or justified. This gun, a Mauser-typed bolt-action hunting rifle, first off, it was bolt-action, would not be banned under any form of gun control proposed in the United States of America. You can buy this gun in fucking Australia and New Zealand. Yes, really, you can actually get this gun. Now, it's a lot harder, but you can still legally get this gun in these countries. So, like, even the most strict gun control would not have stopped this shooting because the guy who clearly wanted to shoot him could obtain it. Now, it's just laughable, like, how gun illiterate a lot of left-wingers are. And besides, Charlie Kirk's position was never that school shootings are justified. Rather, his argument was that, much like how free speech lets people be assholes, the Second Amendment is a fundamental right, that sometimes assholes will do something bad with it. An asshole will sometimes say, someone's a jackass. Sometimes an asshole will shoot up a school. Like, these are sadly some inevitable effects of having a level of freedom. His argument was never that, oh yes, go ahead, shoot up a fucking school. That was not his argument. And it's just weird how these people act like like he was calling for that. Like, no, there's no hypocrisy there. Gun control wouldn't have stopped this shooting, nor did he support school shooting. So that's a really weird fucking argument. The next argument I hear is that he said mean things, and because he said mean things, he deserved it. A lot of these quotes that people love to complain about Kirk saying are very grossly taken out of context. And keep in mind, I don't like Charlie Kirk. I think he's an idiot. However, these specific quotes they like to complain about, one was the whole, they claim that he supported gay people being stoned to death. That's complete fucking bullshit. He was talking about how people will, use certain quotes of the Bible, like sections of the Bible, to justify bullshit. That's what's basically his argument. And the other one, they like to say that he was racist over his DEI/affirmative action positions. But his position was that, unless you hire by merit, there's basically always going to be a certain thing at the back of your mind about, did this person get their job based on merit, or was it just because of their race? Now, you could say that he was, crass on either of these positions, but he's fucking true. People absolutely will take, segments of the Bible to justify bullshit. Or they will, it's reasonable. Personally, I think DEI and affirmative action are both stupid. You should probably only hire based on merit. To me, I think that's the best solution. It avoids the resentment that will intrinsically build up with something like affirmative action and DEI. Those two things do not stop racism. If anything, they from what I can tell, generally speaking, increase it or at the very least keep it in like a sort of simmering rage. So I don't know. I personally wouldn't have worded the stuff he said the way he did, but let's be fucking clear. He was just your typical, like, average conservative, which I know to some people makes him a Nazi because these people are politically illiterate, but he wasn't this particularly extreme person unless you're a fucking communist. That's the only way you could possibly see him as being extreme. But now that we've talked about those two like general arguments, I think it's worth it now to talk about some specific individuals. Now, I want to shout out some people who had more reasonable takes because obviously not all left-wingers are deranged. Some people I can think of are Aaron Ra, Kazumi Fowler, like somewhat reasonable takes on the situation. So, I'll give the devil his due in that regard. However, a number of people had far more unhinged takes on the situation, and I'm going to talk about a few of them, specifically those that I think are notable. First up, we got Nick Anderson, also called Nick on Planet Ripple. I made a video documentary about this guy a couple months ago. I recommend you check it out. I generally always thought that he was kind of a good YouTuber, but he had some really like unhinged moments that I learned more about when I made that video. Like, for example, how he used his stepmother's death to get views and attention. That's a little weird. His deranged takes about Gamergate, like how, Lego Western was racist, and if you liked it, you were a bad person. Watch my video on that. I go into way more detail than I can here. He made a tweet. America is sick, but it wasn't trans people or drag queens or immigrants who made it sick. It was anti-SJW YouTubers, Gamergaters, alt-right grifters, and podcast bros who paved the road to vote Trump terms that set the tone of the political climate we're in now. You made this bad. First off, you gotta love it when people use trans people or drag queens or immigrants as like fucking shields from criticism. I'm not even gonna touch that because it's not interesting to me. Let's talk about what he blames as the real cause. Anti-SJW YouTubers, sorry, a lot of SJWs were fucking stupid. Zoe Quinn, Brett Keane, Steve Shives, complete fucking nut jobs. I love this notion that you can never criticize anyone on the left. Otherwise, you're one of these evil people. And like, weren't like most anti-SJWs just like left-wingers too? Shoe Head, TJ Kirk, Dusty Smith. These people were not like hardcore conservatives. Like, I love this sort of revisionist history people engage in where it's like, no, Sarkeesian was justified. It's like, no, SJWs were idiots. I'm sorry, people will right to criticize them, just as they're right to criticize you now. Gamergaters, God, these people treated Gamergate like their personal fucking Vietnam. They are so fucking angry that people criticized shitty gaming practice. Now, I don't have time to go into an extreme, detailed history of Gamergate. I didn't even have time for it in my Nick Anderson documentary. But in case you don't know, Gamergate was a reaction by gamers against unethical practices in the gaming industry. People like Zoe Quinn sleeping around for positive reviews of her fucking dog shit game, Depression Quest or some shit. I don't care. I never really gave a fuck about that specific game. It was absolute dog shit, but like everyone knows that like gaming journalism, especially back then, but still to this day, if not even worse, was complete fucking garbage. I'm sorry that you feel the need to defend the most worthless writers in human history, but like Jesus, like you're so fucking angry that people disagreed with shitty gaming journalists. You've hold on to this grudge for fucking years, man. Like Jesus Christ, these people they have never gotten over the one time they lost a culture war. Like, let's be fucking clear. The left prior to Gamergate basically won every conflict they went against. They won against the Christians back in, the atheist v Christian days. They won against like Bush and whatever. Like they won every fucking culture war, you could say, except Gamergate. And the one time they lost, they decided to try and blame everything on it. Gamergate has been dead for fucking years. The fact that you still bitch about it to this fucking day is childish. As for alt-right grifters, I don't give a shit about the alt-right. They've been dead since Charlottesville. People like to use the term grifter to describe anyone who makes money and isn't a left-winger. Newsflash, grifting is not just someone who is financially successful. Grifting has a very specific definition. A grifter is someone who says something they do not fucking believe for money. If you actually believe that, I don't know, insert shitty movie like Last Jedi, if they actually think that shit or they think that it's woke crap, that's not grifting. It would only be grifting if they didn't fucking believe it in the goddamn first place and made a video about it anyway. And keep in mind, when this guy says alt-right, what he fucking means is like anyone who's like not a progressive, anyone like right of center is alt-right to someone like this. As for podcast bros, dude, there's a reason there's no left-wing Joe Rogan, because you fuckers don't talk to anyone. Like, yeah, I'm sorry, but when you're more open to talking to people, you're going to have more success, generally speaking. And when they talk about, they who paved the road for both Trump terms and set the tone of the political climate we're in now. First off, Trump won because Obama was shit. He won. Like, everyone forgets, like, the fucking Tea Party that existed prior to Donald Trump. The truth is, there was a rise in populism among the right wing. Someone like that was probably inevitably going to become a president at some point. The reason Trump was a president was because Hillary Clinton sucked ass. They should have had Bernie Sanders run up against him. He probably would have beaten the guy. And Kamala Harris also fucking dog shit. Like, Hillary Clinton's husband was Bill Clinton, who was generally not all that well liked. Do you really think she only lost because she was a fucking woman, you dumb fuck? As for You Made This Bed, Charlie Kirk had nothing to do with the start of Gamergate. He had nothing to do with the start of anti-SJW YouTuber. If anything, that's Thunderfoot, who now is a pretty blatant left-winger who hates Elon Musk. Alt-right grifters, I mean, maybe he talked to some. I don't know. I didn't realize talking to someone meant you endorse everything they believed. Podcast bros, Charlie Kirk did not invent the concept of fucking podcasts. Like, what a delusional statement that is. As for You Made This Bet, it's just stupid. Like, he had nothing to do with this. But regardless, even if he did maybe play a role in any of that, that doesn't deserve him getting shot. What are you, completely unhinged? What a stupid fucking take. And to think that there are people fucking celebrating this statement, claiming it's based. This isn't based. This is fucking disabled. Mentally disabled. And I know he doesn't like it when people use that sorts of insults, but man, I have fucking autism. I can say that word. And I know damn well you're going to dismiss everything I said because I said that word. Because fuck you. If you do, you're childish as fuck. It is more childish to get offended at a word than it is to fucking say it. And quite frankly, I don't like the fact that you're making me look bad for being autistic. He doubled down in a subsequent post saying it was the beginning of the end. Everything we're suffering now is Gamergate's fault! Which is, again, just very childish. Like, no. Like, this is so stupid. Like, this is nothing but a pure conspiracy theory saying Steve Bannon managed to single-handedly do all this. It's just delusional. It's nothing but a conspiracy theory. It's basically the Elders of Zion, but for, like, left-wingers. Like, they believe that Gamergate was the source of all evil. It's laughable. I don't know, Nick Anderson's just a fucking jackass. I don't really hate him as much as I do some of the other people we're about to talk about, because at the end of the day, he does have autism, and so I don't really think he's in full control of everything he says, so I'm going to go a little more easy on him than I do the next people. But, like, Jesus, Nick, like, this is insane. Like, claiming it's all projection of the hypocrites accusing the left of, it's like, buddy, a leftist literally shot him. I don't know how you can fucking say that it's projection or that they're accusing the entire fucking left when, like, the guy who shot him was literally left wing. Like, what the fuck? Should we blame the fucking Martians? I don't know, the critical drinker for, like, evil Nazi racism or some shit. You people constantly, endlessly call everyone a fucking Nazi. And then suddenly, someone you regularly call a Nazi gets shot, and you don't think that maybe you played a slight role in it? Like, This is just proof that sarcastic terrorism is a bullshit concept that these people only apply to the right and never to their own. If someone like Critical Drinker disliking The Last Jedi is somehow part of this mass conspiracy to get Trump elected or whatever stupid shit these people believe, if that is a valid argument, then how could you possibly not say that the left holds some responsibility for the shooting, given that they regularly call everyone they don't like Nazis? Like, am I the only one who thinks it's kind of weird to sit here and be like, well, I mean, like, come on. Like, when you call people Nazis constantly, at some point, someone who's a little mentally ill might take that statement literally and decide to do something about it. There were a lot of idiots in the paleo community who said some really repugnant stuff. There was one who said that it is disempathetic to have empathy for Charlie Kirk and his family, which is actually unhinged. Well, first off, having empathy for someone can never be non-empathetic. That just doesn't even make any sense. And two, disempathetic is not a fucking word. You would use terms like unsympathetic or non-sympathetic. Like, you're not even using the right term. I mean, you're wrong either way, but what the fuck? I only want to call out two, and it's not going to be anywhere near as long as Nick Anderson because I don't really have as much to say. Those are to Tim Morrison Man and Petite Paleo Artist. Petite, you're a fucking cunt. You and the paleo stream community wrongfully disqualified my brother from a speculative evolution contest for quote-unquote instigating drama and being quote-unquote toxic due to him allegedly being, defending racism or whatever because he pushed back on, the bullshit that Scam Nova jackass photoshopped a comment of mine. If you're gonna do that, don't you think it's a little hypocritical to tolerate people in your fucking community celebrating this man's fucking death? You're fucking repugnant. This is worse than anything I've ever said. This is worse than anything my brother has done. And my brother has become basically a pariah in the paleo community because of your fucking bullshit. So I'm gonna call you out. You are a fucking liar. If you want more detail on how much of a repugnant piece of shit these people are, might I suggest the much smaller YouTuber by the name of KeterTube. He made a really good trilogy of videos on the problems of the paleo stream, and I'm just going to play a short little clip here about it, but yeah, these people are fucking repugnant. Also, for the record, his voice is a little odd because he doesn't speak English as a first language, but, here's the clip.
First, let's break down what their announcement said about us. Looking at this announcement, Tim first falsely accuses me of doxing over 30 people, a grossly exaggerated claim. The date he mentions doesn't match the incident, suggesting they're lying. What solution? They never addressed it, didn't contact me, and admitted they didn't talk to me. In fact, I took the initiative myself. First contacting Falco9 first, a week before you pulled out the announcement, then reaching out to Rednaxilla after you said about me just to resolve the issue, which partly succeeded, and I'm glad he responded, so I'd say thanks to him. The rest just don't have the courage to talk or negotiate with me. No past efforts to fix this, and the beef kept going. I doubt they care, especially the screenshots of them celebrating Charlie Kirk's assassination, including you, Tim, blatantly showing their support for violence and their clear desire to wish death on those they oppose. In the third paragraph, Tim smears others for associating with me, people and friends who simply moved on and built our own paleontology community. Ben Leon did nothing wrong. They canceled him over his views on polyamorous relationships, blowing it out of proportion just to isolate him. While Mahamba just informed me about their secret Knights of Iguana server, where he got kicked out later and wanted to be featured on the video, calling us labels like bigots and neo-Newtzis. such labels I condemn is ironic, given their announcements' lies. It's also ironic how they accuse us of settling petty one-sided differences while their server silences voices like mine and others who don't follow their narrative. For crying out loud, they even banned individuals stating the announcement is a terrible idea, as it gives me attention. Even despite the staff previously acknowledging, giving me attention is a bad idea as it gives me power, so double the hypocrisy or even triple it as how they're bigoted to different opinions. Oh, and them claiming we're accusing them of pedophilia? That's a direct reference to the owner of Ecos La Brea, Charlie Goji, who groomed a minor and encouraged them to draw furry smut and got away with it. This isn't a thin accusation. It's documented in a short video with screenshots. So, on top of your lies and hypocrisy, you're enabling a child, groomer online.
The last person I want to talk about is technically two people. It's a pedantic pedestrian podcast. They had an interesting take that I was sent by a friend on Discord. Let's play the clip, shall we?
Paint it black and white, like, oh, left is bad, people on the right good.
Okay, so Trubisky's trying to do this sort of bullshit. Right-wingers think in black and white. It wasn't a black and white situation. Listen, generally speaking, that's kind of true, but listen, this is a case where we know for a fact the guy who shot him was left-wing. Basically, 100% effectively. This is a case where I think it is appropriate to blame the left on it, or at the very least, it's understandable. It's not black and white thinking to say that a left-wing shooter is left-wing. But regardless, let's continue with this clip because something even stupider is said.
Dylan Roof, the one who shot up that South Carolina, or that black church in South Carolina, and he had your sort of neo-Nazi white supremacist views. Do you think that was a right-wing sort of killing,
obviously
or a right-wing act of violence?
All right. Trubisky, John Morgan, Durt Cobain, fourth guy who looks like Linkara. No one at the time said Dylan Roof was left-wing. What are you rambling about? Everyone who was right-wing at the time immediately condemned Dylan Roof's actions. I don't like Dylan Roof. The only person who even remotely, in any way, argued in defense of Dylan Roof was, even then, it's not really an example, AIU. But even then, that kangaroo Hillary Clinton voter did not argue that Dylan Roof's actions were justified. What he said was that it was hypocritical that the drunken peasants, they basically wanted Dylan Roof to be, killed, even though he surrendered to police. Meanwhile, they think that, police brutality against a black person resisting arrest is bad. I don't know. I don't really care about that shit. That was a weird debate between TJ and AIU. It's not relevant. I'll talk about it more when I do the Drunken Peasant series. But, even then, that's not a defense of Dylan Roof's actions. That's just a criticism of TJ being a fucking moron and wording his points poorly. But still, think about it, for more than 5 seconds. Durt Cobain, Trubisky, John Morgan, they're arguing that Charlie Kirk getting shot was morally justified because right-wingers allegedly in their meth-induced hypnosis tried to claim that Dylan Roof was a left-winger, which, for one, it didn't happen, at least not at the time. And if it did happen, which maybe if you dig deep into whatever echo chambers these people go and you might see someone who maybe had that position. I don't even know. Apparently, because that somewhere exists, maybe potentially Charlie Kirk deserves to get shot. What are you fucking? This is deranged. And by the way, to John Morgan, I have one last thing to say. And no doubt you're probably going to make the statement, oh, he said he would never talk about you again. Well, because the next question involves you, I feel it's morally justified to do so. And frankly, your take is so deranged that I think it's worth talking about, even regardless, especially since this video isn't about you. But back on topic, I have this to say to you, John. If you believe it's morally acceptable to shoot people who say stuff you don't like or say stuff that can be perceived as being offensive, there's a lot of people in your life and on your podcast that won't be alive much longer if you genuinely hold that position and that position becomes more mainstream. That's what happens when you normalize political violence. Tread carefully, dude, because you don't want a world where what happened to Charlie Kirk becomes normalized. Now, to answer your question in regards to the John Morgan documentary, you have to go back 2 months or so ago to when I made a video about McCowan's longspur. Now, for context, it's this fairly average-looking bird that got into a lot of controversy. I made a 1-hour video on it, and I highly recommend you watch it. I still stand by everything I said in that video. There was one minor typo, but who cares? That stuff will happen when you make YouTube videos as a hobby. Even the most perfect person will make, a typo every so often. It happens, right? But overall, it's still a much better video than anything John Morgan, Durt Cobain, or Shabisky have ever done in their lives. And in that video, after discussing the evolutionary lineage and the bird as an actual animal, I talked about the controversy. And in that controversy, I included very short clips. Like, we're talking, all told, probably under around 20 seconds, or even less than that. These 15 or 20 seconds were of Durt Cobain and Shabisky both saying some really stupid shit, claiming that the bird itself was racist, which is absurd because birds aren't sentient creatures. They can't really, do anything like that. I would recommend you watch the whole video. Now, I didn't at them. The only way they could have possibly seen that video was if Shabisky or Durt Cobain had one of their fans, or they did it themselves more likely, was just obsessively watching every single video that I've ever made. And having seen this, which they could have only done through an absolutely unhinged level of obsession, Shabisky left a comment claiming that, he was just being sarcastic. Ooh, he was making a joke, guys. Now, Shabisky, being the egotistical man-child he is, proceeded to leave a sort of snide comment, basically saying, I was being sarcastic, bro. I was just joking, bro. And then I rightfully pointed out that, so you said something stupid, promoting misinformation on purpose, but you're trying to cover it up by saying it's just a joke, an excuse you would never afford a conservative of, using as a defense. And of course he whined and complained, and eventually he decided to delete the comment, likely to avoid shame. Now, I didn't get a chance to screenshot it. He, of course, has tried to claim that I deleted the comment. I did not. I've never deleted any negative comment left under one of my videos, but they like to believe it because it makes them feel better, I guess. I looked at Shabisky's channel because, it's kind of weird to just randomly get a negative comment from someone like that. And I looked into it, and there was apparently this GoFundMe. Now, in case you're curious, GoFundMe is this website that can raise money. However, it's kind of infamous, rightfully so, for being full of scams. For example, there have been multiple YouTubers who've been caught doing scams. One of the ways they can do scams is that in many cases, despite, they can list whatever they want, but it doesn't necessarily mean it goes there. And so, because, for one, Pimp X is kind of a piece of shit who false flagged my channel and then tried to accuse me of falsely accusing him of being a pedophile, which never fucking happened. And because Shabisky is admittedly a bit of a drug addict, I personally didn't feel comfortable giving money to this GoFundMe. Because for one, I don't particularly like Pimp Monk, and two, the person running it is someone that I don't necessarily trust with my personal money. And so because of that, I wrote a status update, basically a status post, community post. And I told people, while I feel bad for Pimp Monk X's family, I don't necessarily think you should trust Shabisky with your money. A reasonable thing to do. And also, keep in mind, this GoFundMe was supposedly meant to raise money for medical costs, but then the guy died, so there wouldn't really be any need for, medical costs to be covered. Or if you still want to raise money, then surely it would, for full transparency, if Shabisky really cared, he would have stopped the donation thing, refund all the money, and then start up a new GoFundMe for funeral and medical costs and whatever. To me, that makes more sense, right? I mean, the guy literally died. So this GoFundMe meant to raise money for medical costs to prevent his death is no longer necessary. So really, if you still wanted to raise money for his family to help pay off his debts and stuff, you would cancel the current GoFundMe and do a completely new one with a more accurate, cover. I mean, he has still to this day not changed the title of the GoFundMe, so people could easily donate to it and think that they're helping a man get better when he's already fucking dead. Of course, being someone who doesn't have a lot of subscribers, my status post didn't really go anywhere. There was maybe 2 upvotes at most. Only maybe 5 or 6 people saw it. So regardless of whether you think what I said was tactless or evil or whatever delusional rambling you want to say, no one really saw it and no one gave a shit, because at the end of the day, I am a relatively small YouTuber. However, then for some reason, 3 people decided to become completely enraged and use it against me, which is funny because they accuse me of making drama when, again, no one saw it. But the first person to do anything with this status post was Brett Keane, who, if you don't know, is this old lolcow. He's sort of like a Christian, but an atheist and slightly older. And I'm just going to say this, Brett Keane, fuck off. Don't use my fucking status post filled with legitimate concerns to attack people you don't fucking like. I only mentioned fucking Shabisky. You decided to use it to weaponize it and attack every single person in that fucking community. Don't fucking touch my shit, dude. And Brett Keane, let me tell you something, you credulous moron. Your involvement in any criticism almost always completely invalidates it. You are such an incompetent, toxic moron that whenever you get involved in something like this, you make it worse. If you wanted to talk about this, don't talk about it. Send it to anyone else. You are an anchor on any valid criticism. And I want to clarify, because there are certain people like Skeptical Jesus who think I was in league with this fucking guy. No, I had nothing to do with that guy. He chose to use my valid criticisms in a petulant, childlike video. That's not my fault. I didn't tell him to do that. In fact, if anything, I resent the fact that he did. But enough about him. While he definitely sort of instigated the quote-unquote drama that these people try to blame me for, at the end of the day, he's still a fucking nobody. No one fucking saw his video. No one gave a shit. There were 2 people who really got it started, that being Ben here. And let's start with Benjamin Grady, who, if you don't know, is one of the hosts of the Drunken Peasants. I plan on making a video series on those guys at some point, but for now, I'm just going to respond to some of the things he said.
Okay, now I just want to bring this up. The Dark Master is a fucking idiot, and he is one of the least reliable sources ever for any type of information.
Wow, already off to poisoning the fucking well, aren't you, buddy? That's totally not a logical fallacy.
Any information whatsoever. This is a comment on Smokey Saint's channel.
Oh, so you're going to show a completely unrelated comment that basically had nothing to do with you, all right?
where Smokey Saint called me out. It's not even worth watching. But the Dark Master's on there saying, "Do you see Ben complaining about you on stream? Pitmonk is a loser." He spelled loser really bad. Here, let me see.
Oh, wow. A minor typo. I edited that comment immediately after I posted it because I was like, oh, fuck, there's a typo. But also, like, who gives a shit? Wow, a typo. A typo. As if a typo invalidates a statement. As we all know, Ben, you've never made a typo in your entire fucking life. Clearly not. Oh, you're just perfect. This is some really substantive criticism, Ben.
So this guy already has a negative bias, so he's not a good source for Pimp Monk or anybody Pimp Monk adjacent.
He's basically trying to claim that I'm biased, therefore I'm not allowed to criticize anyone ever. Benjamin Grady. Every human being is biased to a certain extent. Now, people like myself, we do try and restrain that bias, but obviously we're not perfect. I'm only human, you're only human. I don't even know what to say about that. But one thing I will point out, you piece of garbage, is that I don't think you're exactly one to talk about fucking biases. Let me give an example of this dumb fuck's level of dishonesty. Benjamin Grady, when he interviewed Maddox, right, he was basically forced to refund a bunch of money directed at them, right? He tried to claim that it was because Maddox censored him. However, that's not what actually happened. There was no long list of words. All that actually happened was that Maddox asked him, hey, could you maybe, not have text-to-speech read out my home address because Dick Masterson is an obsessive little fuck job?
I am blocked by Maddox, and the story begins during the old days of DP. We had Maddox on as a guest, but before he was going to be on as a guest, before he agreed, he gave me 3 pages worth of words that he wanted blocked that couldn't show up in our Streamlabs or in our chat. A very long list.
In February of 2018, he had one of his friends read my home address on stage at a live event. The following clip is of my home address being read in parts by a person named Ben Grady from the Drunken Peasants podcast.
Sycamore nigger.
Sycamore?
And the last one is 819.
That is area code? That is area code? What is Sycamore?
After Ben doxed me, it didn't take long for Fanboy's hate mob to realize that Ben had just read my home address in public. They pieced it together on Reddit and IRC, and you can see this person figuring it out in real time. Then, the hate mob started posting my home address everywhere, including Reddit, Facebook, IRC, YouTube, Discord, Facebook again, and Facebook yet again. The last one happened in 2019, completely unprovoked like always. Not that there's ever any justification for this type of bullshit to begin with. On a Friday night while I was minding my own business, a guy from Fanboy's mob who's been stalking me for years posted my home address on Fanboy's Facebook page. And for whatever reason, enough people saw this post and I started getting messages from people who were claiming to be driving by my house, so it became a problem. The reason Ben had my address is because I was a guest on his show where they had a live chat room. You can filter out comments during live chat, and they offered to filter out key phrases that the hate mob might spam. I shared a list of key phrases, including my home address, as an anti-doxing measure in case anyone typed it during the live chat. And again, it's worth noting that I didn't ask them to do this, they offered. I made it clear to Ben that I used keywords to prevent doxing, and he pretended to sympathize and said that the same thing allegedly happened to him. I even offered to return the favor. Now, I want to make it clear that TJ, the amazing atheist, had nothing to do with this. He was always kind and courteous to me. This was entirely Ben and Fanboy's doing.
I mean that,
Okay, so he's gonna call this guy a Drunken Peasants fan. This guy's not a Drunken Peasants fan. This guy's a low IQ troll.
Oh, really, jackass? First off, I'm not a troll. I'm genuine in all the stuff I do. There's a lot of criticisms you can make. I'm not one of those people that's a malicious liar. I'm genuine. I'm upfront with what I believe. And guess what, Ben? I don't particularly like you. Do you know why? Well, for one, you are a disingenuous piece of shit. Two, you're kind of a creepy date rapist who did something inappropriate with a woman you were supposed to take care of. I think you're kind of a piece of shit. You remind me of the guy who did something I can't repeat to a family member of mine without their consent. You're kind of a douchebag, a frat boy, one could say.
That was purged from all the communities on separate occasions, too. Because everywhere he went, he was just toxic and a total dipshit.
This guy's fucking lying, okay? The notion that I was purged everywhere is a complete nonsense. I was banned from several servers all at once, simply because they thought that I was an alt of Dark Ninja. Like that's the real truth. They all thought that I was like some alt of Dark Ninja because they're idiots who think that anyone with the name Dark must be an alt of that guy they have an irrational hatred of.
So this is someone who's been banned for literal years because he's such a shithead.
See, Ben trying to claim that I've been obsessed with these guys for years. Not really. I don't really think about you at all, except for right now because you decided to talk about me. If I was such an obvious troll, such a malicious troll, why would you even give me fucking attention? But I guess you just have to, because for some reason, you need to stoke drama while criticizing me for quote-unquote stoking drama.
He's like a super autist, like... I remember when Hannibal and Monty called him Burlap. Everyone had their experience with the Dark Master.
It's funny how he says these stories, but can't give a single one. Like, it's just like this. There are these stories. Like, could you cite one, fucking loser? Well, I could cite one about how you banned me from your Discord server because you thought I was an alt of Dark Ninja.
He was just like unreasonable and like really weird and like obsessive about things and wrong about everything.
Yeah.
Hannibal and Monty called him Burlap, and they were like, you know what he does? He makes videos about Legos and the Jews.
And this is just slander. Like, I have never made a video complaining about the Jews. I don't know where this person gets this from. I'm pro-Israel. I'm not, anti-Semitic. So, like, what is this fucking nonsense, buddy? Like, you're gonna sit here and imply that I'm a fucking, like a Nazi incel or whatever, because I criticized you at some point? Like, well, fuck you. I'm not the guy who fucking supports a bunch of anti-Semitic Palestinian terrorists that murder and rape people, unlike you, Ben. But yeah, that's really all I want to talk about, Ben. Now let's go on to the sort of second guy, that's Shibisky. You've probably heard him in the background of some of these clips, and, well, he said some interesting stuff.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, he's the kind of dude that's like, I don't know, I guess in his 20s, and he lives with mommy and daddy and plays with Legos all day.
He's probably in his 30s.
First off, I do not live with my parents. First, there's nothing wrong with that. That seems very weirdly critical. I mean, tons of people live with their parents due to like financial issues, and as long as they have a job, I don't really see the moral issue with it. But like, I don't live with my parents. I'm a small homeowner. What the fuck? Like, it's weird. Like, also, like, yeah, I review Legos. Like, you fucking smoke weed. Like, what's your point? We all have our hobbies.
He's so stupid he doesn't know how to make a proper YouTube channel. He wanted to make, wanted to make his channel The Dark Master, but he couldn't figure out how to make one.
The Dark Master, The Dark Master.
Yeah.
Gosh, this guy loves to repeat this statement like it's a fucking massive argument. Oh, he calls himself the Dark Master, the Dark Master. He's an idiot. Shibisky, the reason I call myself that is because, well, I wanted my username to stick out. There were tons of people with the name The Dark Master, so I decided to just do it twice. You can say it's cringe, but like at the end of the day, a username has almost nothing to do with the quality of a YouTuber. I mean, for Pete's sake, Mr. Beast, one of the largest YouTubers, doesn't really have a very descriptive username. Like, what is a Mr. Beast? Does he like review animals or some stuff? Like, is he like a furry? Like it doesn't say anything about the YouTuber itself, but we all recognize he's an amazing YouTuber. Like, you can have a pretty mediocre username, but if you're a good YouTuber, you'll be successful. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a weird criticism. Who cares? You call yourself the drunken peasants, but you're not drunk all the time, nor are you particularly poor.
This guy heard the story of and somehow got it confused, where Pimp Monk was the pastor and he did the touching.
This guy's a fucking liar. I never called Pimp Monk X a pedophile. I commented on numerous allegations that were around at the time, not started by me. Also, for the record, he loves to leave out the fact that Pimp Monk X false flagged my channel. They always do that because they want to pretend that my animosity at the guy was completely unfounded. Now, granted, looking back, I probably wouldn't have gone on that live stream because it was filled with a bunch of bad faith people, and personally, I don't like getting ganged up on by multiple fucking jackasses. But let's fucking set the record straight. I did not call that fucking worthless piece of shit, false flagging, rotting in hell, garbage human being a pedophile. I do think it is interesting that, like, people who are pro-LGBT, though, are more offended at being called a pedophile than actually fucking being one. That is very interesting.
And he was going around
What a
trying to expose. Yeah, that's how bad he got the story. And he was literally going around on this this whatever to like expose Pimp Monk.
Gosh, it's so disingenuous. He was trying to spread this. No, I wasn't. It was one live stream where I didn't even call the bastard a fucking pedophile. Where if you are being honest with yourself, nobody saw. Like, the live stream doesn't even fucking exist anymore because Miss Parker fucking nuked her goddamn YouTube channel after getting caught associating with an actual pedophile by the name of Animancer. Like, literally, the only archive of this supposedly evil live stream I did was these guys on their drunken peasants clone, the pedantic pedestrian podcast. If you were truly against this quote-unquote allegation being spread about Pimp Monk, you'd fucking delete that reaction live stream because literally no one else has it. I don't have it. Miss Parker doesn't have it. No one gives a fuck about this shit. But you love to bring it up as if I called someone a pedophile, and you know why you do it. You do it because it's a way to dismiss and invalidate any criticism I or people who associate with me in any way for some reason, because you seemingly think everyone who doesn't like you is in some sort of fucking cabal, as being completely invalidated. Like, it's childish, dude. It's childish.
That he is 7 foot, I believe he said 7'2".
No way.
This is just something that Shabisky pulled out his fucking ass, by the way, but alright. I've never lied about my height, but I guess if he needs to delude himself into thinking that, but alright.
That blew my mind about this is how stupid he is, how disconnected he is from being an adult that pays bills. Because at the bottom there, skip a bit down, it says the truth is Shabisky is extremely well off, and if he wanted to, he could just give Pimp Monk $9,000 without a second thought.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. You describe yourself as a successful rapper. You've said and bragged about your fucking wealth. Dude, you could give this fucker $9,000 out of pocket. At least according to yourself. Like, what the fuck? Like, I'm sorry that I assumed you had some moderate of success. I'm sorry. I assumed that you were somewhat successful in life. You know, my mistake. You got me. Ooh. And besides, let's be fucking clear. I highly doubt Shabisky doesn't have the ability. Like, if someone pointed a gun to his head and asked, hey, take $9,000 out of your savings account, I bet you he has the money. Like, if he absolutely had to, he could get $9,000. I mean, I can get fucking $9,000 out of my account if I need to. Now, granted, it'd be a pretty significant blow, and I wouldn't want to do it, but I could if, like, an emergency happened. So what is he fucking rambling about?
Dude, maybe I could have money to throw around that Dark Master if I didn't have fucking bills to pay and shit like you.
I love how he's lecturing me, a guy who owns his own house, about bills. Yes, Shabisky, Obviously, you have to pay bills. I never claimed that you didn't have to pay bills. I love how this guy who's like very well off is flexing about how I'm poor. I'm a few months payment away from the grave. Like, buddy, you're not poor. Poor people can't sit around all day smoking weed on a live stream. You're relatively well off. Just fucking admit it. Like, what is this deranged attempt to come off as poor? Shabisky himself made a very short 15-minute live stream called Live, Worst Zero Build Stoner Player Ever. Whatever that means. And he basically regurgitated a lot of the stuff Ben said, but there's one thing in particular that I think shows how stupid he is.
Held in an account that as the person who is running the GoFundMe, your account, which you can transfer to Pimp Monk. And I'm sure he'll see this. He's a fucking dumb fucking ass. Maybe you need...
So this is probably, of all the things I've heard so far, one of the stupidest. Shabisky, I don't know if you know this, but just because you put something as a beneficiary in a GoFundMe doesn't mean they get the money. There's so many ways around this. You could easily set up an alt to send the money to. That way you can keep it. Or you could have a family member do that for you. Or, like, you could just choose not to give the money to the beneficiary. You don't actually are under any legal obligation to actually give the money to who you say the beneficiary is. Like, this happened with, like, some Trump supporters. There was this guy pretending that he was sending money to the Trump team, and then it turned out, oh no, he was just pocketing the money and putting it into a shell account. Like this doesn't prove shit. You showing this as a gotcha doesn't prove anything.
He is a disgusting person. He is a disgusting...
I love how he's trying to imply that I'm a disgusting person for quote-unquote attacking a dead guy or making drama out of it. I didn't make drama out of fucking anything. I made a status post expressing my skepticism towards someone holding a GoFundMe that I didn't trust. If anything, you're fucking disgusting for weaponizing your dead friend to attack me with. That's disgusting. You are using Pimp Monk X as a slab of dead meat to attack me with. You are a disgusting fucking loser, Shab. Like, can you... Like, I'm gonna say this bluntly. I don't think Shabisky gives a shit that Pimp Monk X is dead. He is happy because he can use it to club anyone he doesn't like. Oh, because keep in mind, Shabisky has always hated my fucking guts. Because he's a spiteful loser. And so now he's like, Pimp Monk X is dead? I know what I can do. Let me attack Dorkmaster with it. The only person disgusting here is you, Shab.
Fucking person, and I really want to meet him. You know?
I love how this guy is such a deranged nut job. He's basically doing like a violent threat against me, which is funny because he's accused me of doing that. Shabisky, I know you like to act all tough. You put the fucking weed in your background. You're like this tough gangster urban youth guy. I'm a gun owner. Anyway, after Shabisky and Benjamin Grady's enraged ramblings, my video documentary on John Morgan got a community guideline strike for harassment and cyberbullying. Now, what was this evil cyberbullying? It was 11 minutes and 2 seconds in where I described John Morgan's thumbnails. I don't know how describing someone else's thumbnails is an act of violence, but okay. You would think that John Morgan's thumbnails would also get him a strike if that was the case, but YouTube's very inconsistent and tends to go easy on left-wingers compared to right-wingers. So I don't know. It's just weird. Now, Shabisky tried to deny this, saying that he's not responsible for this, and nobody I know has even talked about the video in a long time. Does it inherently have to be one of us because the video is talking about us? And to that I say, well, given the fact that this flagging only happened after you and Ben bitched about me, it does seem extremely likely that either you or someone in your audience had something to do with it. Now, is it, I guess, theoretically possible that, I don't know, Martian Manhunter could be behind it? Sure, I guess that might be possible, but let's be clear. This is literally the same argument that YMS made when he called for people to mass report Rob's Media's video documentary on the guy, and then it was like, "Well, I had nothing to do with it." It's like, sure you didn't. Sure you did. You're completely innocent. It just so happened that a video criticizing you got taken down when you complained about it. Ooh boy. So yeah, for all you people who really liked my John Morgan documentary, I don't know why you do, because I don't like making those videos. That's what happened to it. I will say that my promise to not talk about the guy was basically predicated on the fact that my thoughts and coverage of the guy spoke for itself. Now that that's taken down, though, well, all bets are off. These people have shown themselves willing to mass report and mass flag anyone who disagrees with them. And while I do not plan on making another video about John Morgan anytime soon, probably never, depending on what happens or not, I may well revisit the man at some point alongside some other people, but I don't know. It honestly depends, really. I'd prefer to make a video on, I don't know, Durt Cobain or the Drunken Peasants or the Animancer guy before I do that. But yeah, anyway, that's that. Anyway, the next question comes from Vomit Squad. What if Ninjago's Ghost Ninja Yokai, the minor level ghost goon of Ninjago, a former prisoner of the Cursed Realm, teaming up alongside with Deadpool for a Pacific mission to mercy kill the MCU by turning it into a cursed chaotic circus, replacing its heroes with hobos and crackheads, tanking the franchise, and forcing Marvel back to its comic book roots for the gloriously unhinged happy ending? If Deadpool and Wolverine is antimatter and matter, then Deadpool and Ghost Ninja Yokai is heart and soul. It's like a bunch of two revolutionaries saving the universe from a dictator who happens to be a mouse. I actually find this question a little funny. Most of the other stuff is just kind of unoriginal, But this guy, he wrote a fantastical crackhead fan fiction. Now, as for if, I don't know, I don't think Ghost Ninja Yokai and Deadpool could defeat the entire MCU. But man, that would make for an absolutely hilarious movie if it was just completely unhinged. Don Artis asks, what difference in the Kirby anime do you wish was in the games if you had one, of course? Well, if there was any differences that I would want, they would have to be the inclusion of Tiff and Tuff, but perhaps more important in terms of gameplay, I think that there were a number of design elements in terms of the abilities that I think should be put into the games. I liked how Ice Kirby was bluish. There was, Baton Kirby, Iron Kirby, that one was pretty cool too. I just think as well there's also some enemies that could make the transition into the games really easily, like Wolf Wrath. Fan of Ben 10 Ultimate Alien Cosmic D asks, what if DC Snowflame singing Alphaville Forever Young with Ghost Ninja Yokai from the Ninjago universe in karaoke night? I mean, we don't really hear Ghost Ninja Yokai talk, but I can assume, given the other ghosts, he probably has a raspy voice, so I don't think he'd really be all that good in karaoke. Insect Illuminati Get Shreked 5574 asks several questions. 1. Have you heard of the fossil Holothrid discovered earlier this year? 2. Thoughts on mites in general? 3. Have you ever played Deadly Creatures? And 4. Favorite animal phylum? No, I hadn't heard about that until you told me about it, and that's interesting. It's nice to see another arthropod group get some representation in the fossil record, though it seems to be very similar to modern ones, so I don't know how much it really tells us about their origins. Thoughts on mite in general? Well, I'm not honestly that big of a fan of mites. I mean, they're alright. They and ticks are sort of just, to me, one of the lesser arachnid groups, not in terms of number or diversity, because they're pretty interesting, and I in fact made a video about the ticks of Mississippi. But they're just not personally my favorite. I much prefer harvestmen and scorpions, vinegaroons. I even like the hooded tick spiders, the raniculae. But as for mites and ticks, they're okay. I've never played Deadly Creatures. From what I can tell, it's a somewhat well-regarded game, but I've just never had the opportunity to enjoy it. And my favorite animal phylum is arthropods. No questions asked. They're so diverse, from trilobites, eurypterids, cyclids, beetles, bugs, true bugs specifically. You can't call every insect you look at a bug because that's not accurate. They're just really diverse and they're never ending in terms of what you can learn about them. Darielrios 2789 says, "Congratulations on your goal on 1,000 subscribers. I will continue to support you." I know this isn't really a question, but I just felt like reading it because he seems to be very nice. And thank you, Darielrios 2789. You're a nice guy too. Noted failed artist Durt Cobain asks, "Who would win in a theoretical fictional battle to the death, John Morgan or Shibisky? Why and how would this battle commence? I would appreciate as much attention to detail as to how this battle unfolds as possible." Alright, so I don't know what's wrong with you. Apparently, you for some reason fantasize watching your best friends die. Very unusual. I can't be as detailed as you probably want, as due to a community guideline strike. I don't want to suffer that anymore. So I'm going to be a little light on that. However, I can answer as to how and why this battle would commence and who would win. Well, what would likely happen, based on my experience, is that Shibisky and John Morgan would be in their room recording a podcast, and Shibisky would probably say something inanely stupid due to his, drug-addled state. Like, "Hey, ever wonder why Minnesota's in Manitoba, man?" Something like that, right? And then John Morgan, in his wrath, would proceed to say, "Shabisky, you didn't do any research!" And then he would proceed to beat the shit out of him. As for who would win, though, well, on one hand, John Morgan, despite his claims of physical prowess, is actually kind of a very weak and effebile man, whereas Shibisky, however, is relatively strong, but the problem is that Shibisky, for all his strength, has a very low reaction time due to his drug use, so really, whoever wins, it could go either way. Gabs100 Gabs10 asks, "Who would win in a fight, Billy Billions the Vengers versus Ninjago's Ghost Ninja Yokai?" If the Vengers could figure out that he's weak to water, I definitely think they would win due to the power of teamwork. Otherwise, I guess Ghost Ninja Yokai could beat him. Parody of Ghost Ninja Yokai, who asks, "What if Ninjago's Ghost Ninja Yokai was in Palace Road Nature Garden in Lambeth and meet Ass Kicker, aka Todd Haynes, and eventually became friends with him?" I'll be honest, I don't really think that Ghost Ninja Yokai or Todd Haynes are the kind of people who regularly make friends of that sort of nature. I guess it's possible, maybe? I don't know. But yeah, thank you for everyone who asked questions. It's really fun to engage in these sorts of things. Don't worry though, next time we'll be returning to the regular scheduled Kirby game review with Kirby Star Allies, and it's probably the longest one yet, though I haven't quite fully recorded all the audio, so I won't know until then. But anyway, take care and have a wonderful day.